Hello again, ladies and gentlemen. How's everybody doing today? All right. First of all, thank you so much for being here. Thank you for giving up a portion of this beautiful day to come in and visit with us in the symposium. Welcome to Whale Fest Monterey 2018. Yeah! Excuse me. I'm sorry. I'm excited. My name is Steve Elzie, and I am with the CBS affiliate KION Television. I'm very, very, very happy to be here. We've got, again, just dynamite programs, one after the other. And talk about dynamite. I mean, this is pure nitroglycerin. That's you, Peggy, your nitroglycerin. We're going to bring Peggy Stap up. Some of you may know her. Peggy was the founder, or is the founder and founding director of Marine Life Studies and of the Whale Entanglement team. And today she's going to be speaking about the dangers of gear entanglement on whales and the challenge that the whale entanglement team has to meet to go out there and ameliorate the situation. It's very exciting. It's such important work, and we're so honored to have Peggy Stap with us today.
Thanks, Steve. What a great introduction. I appreciate it. Anyway, you know, I'm Peggy Stap with the Whale Entanglement Team and Marine Life Studies, and of course I'm the executive director, and of course I'm going to have to show you an overview of everything we do. We just don't have the Whale Entanglement Team, so this will give you a little overview. Well, that kind of gives you an overview of everything that we do. What I'm talking to you about today is the Whale Entanglement Team, but we have our Research Scientist program, which is really a great training platform for our Whale Entanglement Team, because a lot of people want to know how they can get involved, and we do research. We have a federal permit to do research out on the bay, and it's a perfect opportunity to train people on all the equipment, because we use most of the same equipment for an assessment when we first come on to an entangled whale, the video camera, the radios, the still cameras, the data sheets, things of that, the video camera, the GoPros, the underwater cameras. And the only difference is then we train you on additional things, like how to turn on a telemetry buoy, or how to do certain knots, learn the different tools, such as this whale rescue blade. So like, you know, when we say, hey, go on down to the pelican case, we need this tool, that tool, you'll know what to do. So it's pretty exciting. Now, this next one is, and we're celebrating 13 years this spring, so we've been around. Now, this is a video about the Whale Entanglement Team that our CSUMB student did when she was still in college as a junior. She's now my executive assistant. She's a great gal. Reports of entangled whales have significantly increased off the coast of California. As you can see, they are pretty devastating. These gentle giants are suffering from life-threatening entanglements. These entanglements can lead to a slow and painful death, as seen in these photos with the line wrapped around the tail area and the line through its mouth, near its eye, as the whale gazes at us. But there's hope! Working under a special federal permit with the Marine Mammal Health and Stranding Response Program, we have a trained team that gives whales another chance at life, always working from small boats, never getting in the water with the whales, as it is too dangerous for the whale and the rescuers. By using tools specially designed to disentangle whales, along with proven methods, we are able to free whales in distress. Wet plays a pivotal role in saving these whales.
Did you free it? Yes!
Woo! Wet is saving whales one at a time. We're always excited when we free the whale. And that blade that you saw is this one. It's made by Spyderco. It's designed just for whale rescue. And it's, you know, you saw some blood coming from the tail. That was from unwrapping the line that was taut around there. The blade never touched it. It's all blunt on this side, so you can go right up to the whale like this. But this blade is so sharp, it could take your finger off. It can cut that blue steel line like it's butter. So it's an important piece for us in our toolkit. But this is kind of our history. We started in 2006. Some of you may have seen this before, but this last year we added the 5th edition of our Marine Mammal Guide, and I should have brought one in here. We have a waterproof Marine Mammal Guide that gives you all the illustration of all the different whales and dolphins you can see off the coast of California. And on the back it has our 877 SOS whale hotline and what to do if you're out on the bay and you see a whale that's entangled, which is real important. But when we started Marine Life Studies in 2006 of the spring, we had our fundraising garage sale in the fall. We got a call about an entangled whale, and I was shocked that there was no team here already set. I worked in Hawaii along with Mary Whitney from Fluke Foundation. We both worked for separate research teams there, but she's on our board of directors, and we called everyone. Finally, we called Ed Lyman in Hawaii, and he put us in touch with people. We were able to disentangle that whale, but not in the method that we were accustomed to in the Hawaiian Islands. So we had our first set of tools January 2008. We had our first training May 8th and May 9th of 2008. And on May 11th, we got a call about an entangled whale while Ed Lyman was here. We brought him in from Hawaii for the training. So was it by 2012 or so, we got the whale entanglement trailer. It might have been 13 that was fully operational, but we got a wet from IFAW, the International Fund of Animal Welfare. We have a roll-up boat, and you'll see that. But over the years, we've really formed a great network. Look at all our partners here locally. We couldn't do it without them. So Marine Life Studies and Fluke Foundation we worked together on putting this, getting the quest started, because we really wanted to get that implemented here. And it wasn't easy, but it was really the Monterey Bay National Marine Sanctuary's Conservation Working Group that kind of took and ran with us, which really was instrumental for us to, propel ourselves to the future and get some of the things. Because a lot of people, I was from Michigan. I didn't see a whale till I was 41, so people didn't know who I was at all. And Mary Whitney was from Buffalo, New York. So we were kind of newcomers to the area. And Joe Cadero at Southwest Fisheries, who was the head of entanglement and strandings, said that the vet at UC Santa Cruz called him up, and he goes, "Who is this Peggy Stap?" He didn't know who I was. So, sometimes I think maybe it's better if you're not from the area. We got it done, so we were very excited about that. But we worked closely with the Monterey Bay National Marine Sanctuary, and Paul Michel, for our MC Gives us last year, gave us a great testimonial. So we couldn't do it without all these partners in the area. Now, this next is going to be a video that a UC Berkeley student who's getting his master's. He's in journalism. And one thing I wanted to talk about today is, the fishermen, because that's an important component. If it wasn't for the fishing and the gear, the whales wouldn't get entangled, but the fishermen are really working towards mitigating that. And so I wanted to kind of spend a little time talking about that, and then I have some case histories I'll go over after that. But it's real important to understand the whole scope of the problem, because just looking at one aspect of it isn't going to cure the problem. And the whale entanglement team's great, but it's really a Band-Aid on the bigger problem.
Monterey Bay, California. An area known for its mesmerizing deep blue water, peppered with sea vessels and vibrant wildlife everywhere you look. Its beauty can easily be admired from ashore, but visitors know the real treat is in far deeper waters.
Okay guys, got a status update for you here. We know that less than 1.3 miles away from us, that's going to be a very good time for all of you to start helping us out. Be looking in all directions. These things could pop up anywhere.
11 o'clock. Here he is.
Each day, thousands take whale watching tours to try and get a glimpse of some of the world's largest mammals alive. and they're never disappointed.
Wow.
These larger-than-life creatures put on a show, flashing their flukes and breaching the water. But not all whales have this luxury. For some, every minute is a struggle for survival, especially if they've been entangled. Whales get wrapped up in fishermen's lines or nets and are unable to break free. Some drag this gear for hundreds of miles, while others may be tangled so badly that they can't even move. This is not a new phenomenon on the West Coast. Reports have been flowing in since the early 1980s, and it's getting worse.
There are three elements involved with the rise of entanglements. One is the rise in whale population itself. These animals were killed to near extinction. Now, the humpbacks are just hundreds of them, if not thousands of them, all up and down the coast. Another reason is that the intensity of the fishery has also gone up. And with some of the changes in the ocean climate over the years, the fishing practices have changed, and that has created a higher impact.
Heightened awareness has also led to the recent increase. More people are actively looking for whales in distress, which means more reports in the area. According to the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration, or NOAA for short, the number of instances has been rising over the last 3 years, reaching a record high of 71 entanglements last year. That's about 6 per month.
That was in 2016.
This year,
71.
before fishing season even started, there were 34 reported cases.
It's been an issue that's been getting worse over the last few years. It's caused a lot of concern for the agencies and then for Fish and Wildlife, NOAA Fisheries, and of course for fishermen who are dealing with the entangled gear as well.
Get that line and push it under when you guys are wide.
Humpback and gray whales are the main victims of entanglement. They often get their fluke, mouth, pectoral fins, or body wrapped up in fishing lines that heavily restrict their movement. As the whales attempt to break free, the line often slices deeper and deeper into the animal as it struggles. At this point, the whale will most likely die.
These animals are salient beings with feelings, and we're putting crap in the water that hurts them, kills a bunch of them, and we need to reduce that.
There's only 4 people on the West Coast qualified to cut whales free in this situation, and Peter Falkins is one of them.
We have a series of custom designed and made knives. Some of them are flying knives, meaning they disconnect from the pole. We have net rippers. We have Spyderco custom made what they call whale knives. Oftentimes the line that's wrapped around the whale is under tension. And so all we have to do is nick that and then the whole thing comes apart.
With its tightly woven polypropylene fabric, Dungeness crab gear has become the biggest culprit in this issue. Last year, crab lines alone accounted for more reported entanglements than any other form of fishing on the West Coast. This has put crab fishermen under pressure.
I really rely on Dungeness crab fishing in this particular area.
Calder Dyerly is a Dungeness crab fisherman that comes from a fishing family which owns a restaurant and processing plant. It's his livelihood.
How I attach the trailer and diver buoy.
He has firsthand experience with an entangled whale and knows that if numbers continue to skyrocket, it could spell trouble for his industry.
Fishing really supports my whole family in that without the first link to the supply chain, which is going to catch the fish, the other businesses can't operate as they should. And in the end consumer would really suffer because we're really out there to catch the best quality food I think you can possibly eat.
To search for a solution, Dyerly joined a multi-agency working group made up of fishermen, disentanglers, environmentalists, and state and federal regulators.
Fishermen are becoming just much more aware of this issue. And so, when they're setting pots, they're looking around to see if there are whales. So if there's a bunch of whales feeding nearby, they're not going to set their pots there. We need fishermen to fish. Everybody wants crab and loves crab. So we've got to figure out a way to find some balance.
So far this year, fewer whales have been entangled in crab gear, and that number is expected to go down further. But not everyone is impressed. The Center for Biological Diversity, a former group member, decided to bring on a lawsuit in early October, which aims to restrict the amount of crab gear in Monterey Bay.
Essentially, the lawsuit is suing the California Fish and Wildlife Department, saying that any entanglements that happen in state waters from this fishery are illegal, and there could be consequences down the line if things don't improve.
I think what will affect me is whatever the judge's decision is that comes out of this lawsuit, and that really scares me because I don't want to leave the decision of what to do about whale entanglements up to a person or a group of people who don't have as good of an idea of what's going on with the cause of entanglements as the working group has.
The fishery is well aware of the concerns, and they realize that this year is going to be the year when all eyes are going to be on them. And so they want to have a successful fishing year, but they also want to have no entanglements.
Currently, everything's looking good. Hopefully they won't be interacting in areas with crab gear quite as often.
November 15th marked the beginning of crab season, and there's been no whales entangled thus far. If this continues, things could be looking up for all West Coast fishermen moving forward.
Calder, the gentleman, the fisherman there, he's part of the working group. He also stood by a couple years ago with his son Miles, at the time who I think was 4 years old, while we got to the area and the scene, we were able to disentangle that whale. This program was finished before Thanksgiving, because Thanksgiving weekend we had on entanglement. We're not sure what kind of fisheries it was because actually there were no buoys and no pots associated with it, and then there was another one in December. So, it was great. This December, 2017, we did have less, and there's some reasons for that too that we believe. But this is the crab fishing gear working group that Calder was talking about, and in the film. Peter Falcons is our level 4, and there are 4 across the West Coast. There's Keith Yip down at SeaWorld, Justin Visbicki, who's with NOAA, Peter, who's up in the Bay Area, and John Kalmakitis up in Washington State. I'm a level 3. There's different levels that you can participate. Now, we're allowed as a level 3 under the direction of a level 4 to make the cuts. So there's a lot of different parts to this, in the disentanglement network. But this crab fishing gear, they started in 2015. It's really cool because you have the fishermen, commercial, recreational, the environmental groups, the disentanglement network, NOAA, National Marine Fisheries, all working together. And that's actually Calder there, showing the working group. I can't see it over there. There he is. Showing the working group about how you lay out the lines, which is real important because they came up with the best practices, which I'll show you in a few minutes. And I think that's one of the reasons in 2017 we didn't have quite as many entanglements along the West Coast, which is great. And they've done a lot of different things. I won't read everything on this slide, but they're trying to guide the future of how they can stop there's many entanglements with the whales, and part of it is just these best practices. Part of it is this other group that I'm going to talk to you that they kind of spun with this called RAMP, this other program within the working group. And so by working together, they understand the fisheries better than we do. In fact, in July, there was an entanglement in that film when you saw the whale come up with all the yellow buoys all the way around. If it wasn't for the fishermen that came in and helped with that disentanglement, they weren't disentangling, but because of their knowledge of what was underneath the water, hooked to this grounded whale up in Crescent City, they wouldn't have been able to do as good a job if it wasn't for the help. So it's really important to bring them in the fold, and they're an important part of our network. Now, this is the best practices guide, and this right here, you can see that they used to have a lot of scope of line, from the buoy up to the main buoy, from the pot to the main buoy. And so now they wanted, like, if you have 300 feet depth you're fishing in, maybe you have 310 feet of line or 320. Sometimes there was a spot prawn guy that dropped in Monterey Bay a couple years ago at 9:15 or 9:45 in the morning, and by 3:45 that afternoon I got a call. He was in 300 feet of water with 600 and some scope of line, dropped it in an area he wasn't from here, right where the humpback whales were feeding. So that's the kind of thing we want to eliminate too. You know, that whale got entangled so quickly, but we were able to free it. But this is really important. Mixing science with fisheries and people working on all different aspects of entanglement is so important. Now they're going through historical data. In fact, they're using some of our research data because we do research out on the bay. So they're taking some of our research data. They're looking at all the historical data. NOAA does boat surveys and has data to see where the biggest concentrations are and compare that to, you know, the sea surface temperature over the years, other factors, ocean factors as well. And then this year, they're going to even do flyovers. So if, okay, say right outside of Moss Lane within a mile, there's a lot of whales feeding, and they already have their crab gear there. They're going to get a call and say, hey, you know, we have a lot of whales feeding there. Let's pick up your crab gear and move it out farther where they aren't feeding. So, and that's going to be real important. The problem the last few years why it was so intense is, especially in 2014 and 15, some of the whales didn't go back in the winter down south like they normally do. They stayed here. I couldn't believe it when I came out. I remember just right after New Year's in 2015, how many humpback whale blows I saw just outside of Moss Landing was incredible. So looking at all those variables is what's going to help eliminate entanglements and reduce that number, because we want to reduce it, but it's, you know, a lot of different people and folks working on different aspects of it that's going to really make it work. And so this kind of gives you, like, in 2000 to 2013, you know, over the whole West Coast, there are 241 reports. And then I just kind of did California. 2014, we had 17 for the state, but 10 of those were in Monterey Bay. Yeah, we have, this is the hot spot of the West Coast. In 2016, there were 23 confirmed individual reports in just the Monterey Bay National Marine Sanctuary. Those are confirmed. There was a total of 71 reports on the West Coast. Then they confirmed down to 48, but just in Monterey Bay, there was 23. And these are some numbers from last year, but they're not official. So, but there were 41 whale reports. That's a big difference from last year. And that's for the whole West Coast, and 30 confirmed. And so you'll see, and they show the different fisheries. Now they're trying to look at the different fisheries. The problem is the Dungeness crab fisheries gets targeted because they're one of the few fisheries that actually mark their gear. So it's easy to say, hey, this is what you guys, that's one of the reasons that they're working so hard, because they know that the spotlight's on them. And they know if they don't try to work towards it, the state's going to regulate it, and they don't want that. Yeah, and that's what just happened in the legislature. So, so here's in 2017, out of those 41, there was 2 unidentified. That means that no one could identify whatever whale it was. You know, they probably had a picture, wasn't sure, kind of thing. There's a way that they look at each, you know, whether it's a confirmed or just, you know, or reported. But you can see the difference of how many. The biggest portion are humpbacks and grays. But this, I just came from an entanglement workshop in Southern Cal. I just flew back last night, and we had all the level 4s and the level 3s. I'm a level 3, all in the same room from Washington, D.C., Hawaii, all up and down the western coast of the United States, and some from the eastern coast. And so, but this is just for the West Coast. And look at the gear type. And so that's why just recently the working group went to the legislature and said that the other fisheries need to mark their gear. We need to learn more about these other fisheries. Without that, we're not going to be able to totally solve the problem. Right now, look at how much is unidentified, because there's so many fisheries that are not marked. So in 2017, they even broke it down further. They just have Dungeness crab here, but then in 2017, they went Dungeness crab in California commercial, the recreational, Washington Dungeness crab, even the tribal crab in Washington, the sable and coonstripe fish, and our shrimp. That was the one that was in Crescent City this year. Gillnet, and then the other. And I'm not sure why they have other when they have unidentified. It doesn't make sense. But anyway, it's important that the different fisheries have to mark. Now, on the East Coast, they mark the line. Some don't have buoys. They just have pots and things down below without big trailing buoys, I guess. And so they mark the line itself because you'll see there was an entanglement over Thanksgiving weekend. There were no buoys or anything. We have no clue what fisheries that came from. But there's even more hope. Besides, so many people in the government and the fishing industry working together. I met this gentleman at the Marine Mammal Conference in Halifax, Canada in October. And he was leaving to go work with Woods Hole and NOAA right after the conference. And he has this idea, and it's pretty ingenious, with a crab trap and then a lift bag. Like divers have lift bags that lift things from the bottom. Well, it's got a little cylinder, and you can either do it on a timer with a battery, or there's a little gizmo that you can point down in the water, and it'll set something off in it, and it'll inflate, and it'll bring the bag up. So I had gotten a bunch of the disentanglement people together in Halifax, and I was showing them this, so we had a really good discussion about it. It's better than some of the other ones they've seen. The problem is NOAA Fisheries nymphs, they want the gear marked, one, because for management purposes, to make sure they're not putting too many pots down below, that kind of thing. Plus for other fishermen to mark. So it's going to be a bit of a slow change, but Dave Zanheiser from the Marine Mammal Center up in Sausalito, he was with us, and he's part of our entanglement network here, disentanglement network, I should say. And he said, well, the reason they have that blue steel line is to pull those heavy pots up. They could still have a buoy and a marker line, but it could be such a low strength that if a whale got entangled in it, it could bust. So I thought, that's ingenious. That's a great idea. So now he's going back in the next couple of weeks to work with NOAA and Woods Hole, because the problem out east, and they're going to be testing some of this out east, and once they get a prototype that'll lift, because he was working with 80-pound crab pots. I said, the crab pots that they're using off the West Coast, they're 140, 45 pounds. You need a bigger lift bag. So they're going to get some prototypes, and once they do, I'm going to see if they'll give us some that we can use, and I can give it to maybe Calder here in Monterey Bay to test this. But at least there's some hope for the future, that there's really people from all different worlds that are looking at this to try to mitigate these problems. So that part's really exciting. So I kind of wanted to touch on that, because a lot of people don't understand the background and some of the other issues that go into entanglement. So there's a lot to be thinking about. So today I'm going to talk about 3 different case studies. And this is our boat, our whale rescue research boat called Currency. And this is our Hypalon roll-up boat that we actually keep in a trailer up at Moss Landing Marineland Boat Ops, so that we can go up and down the coast. And that whale that, you could see the blood and they were unwrapping, that we actually started was a whale that was entangled up here in Monterey Bay. And we ended up going down to Santa Barbara, and we tracked it because we had a telemetry buoy on it, and we had to finish disentangling it down there 17 days later. In fact, if you go to our booth, there's a picture of the track, and then also we saw that whale 45 days later, something like that, back up here in Monterey Bay. So that was exciting. We never get to see, what happens. So, and everyone was so excited, and I just happened to be out with our research scientist program and interns from CSUMB and one from Ireland, and I said, boy, that whale looks familiar. It had a lot of sea lice, and sure enough, it was our whale. We didn't confirm it till that evening with the photos, but yeah. And we never get in the water. We always work from small boats, and we always work under this permit called the Marine Mammal Health and Stranding Response Program, and that's where our levels. We get the primary principal investigator is Terry Rawls out east, and I'm on it as a investigator as a level 3, same as Peter Falkins as a level 4. So, and we have to have authorization from NOAA before we even go in. So now this one I like to show the Center for Coastal Studies out east, who have been disentangling whales since the 70s. Here's a nice entanglement there. See the arrow? It looks real simple. And this is why you should never get near a whale that's entangled. because this is what could be under the water. A lot of line trailing and that sort of thing. So you don't want to get anywhere near the whale. We've had lines back 100, 150 feet or more. And so you never know where that line is, so you really want to stay away. So if you see a whale, you want to stay 100 yards away, use your long lens, take photos and stuff, and just stand by, and that really is what helps us a lot. But someone was just telling me a story today about a fisherman friend of theirs where they went behind a whale that had line, and they got stuck in it. And I'm like, oh no, they were able to cut themselves off the whale, but that is very dangerous. I'd like to show this. I know if you've been to one of my talks, you've seen this before, but this is why they get entangled. You're putting something in their home, in their background. They're curious. They like to play. This is not line. This is a whale for 2 hours played with kelp, wrapped it around its head, its rostrum, around its fluke. It had it around its pec fin, and I've seen it again and again over the years. But if that was blue steel line wrapped around the rostrum of this animal right here, it wouldn't be able to feed and would have a slow and painful death. So that's one of the reasons they get entangled, because they're just curious. And this is, that one that you saw with the whale, that was on the sea dip buoy about almost 30 miles west of Point Pinos. It's the first time we ever had a whale entanglement with a NOAA type apparatus on a wave rider buoy out there. But so now I'm going to talk about the one in April that we had. This was reported to us by a whale watch boat out in Monterey Bay. Elisa Schulman, in fact, she's part of our network. She's actually from Southern California. She just happened to be up here at that time. And look at how long the line is trailing behind the animal. It was about 100 feet, and it had 2 buoys attached. So we responded, and we were getting our boat already up in Moss Landing when Peter called me. He says, no, let's not use your boat. Just take all the equipment down and let's go out on the Fulmar, because they're our partners. So we did. So we got down there, and we loaded all the equipment and went out. Now, that's why, when we're out on calls, and like I showed you this, how assessment is so crucial. This was a really important photograph that we got from Elisa, and she sent it to us from the boat. So we knew how long the line was behind the animal. Now, they lost it in the meantime. They stood by, but then they lost it, but we were able to find it from the last known position. So now look at it. Line's much shorter. So that kind of gave us a clue what's going on with the entanglement, which was real important. So now the line's only about 40 feet behind. And I brought my little model so I could kind of show you what's going on, but let me show you a couple more pics. So now the line is actually coming out of the side of the mouth. And so we figured that the whale, opened its mouth, got the line in, and it's probably got the trap on the right side down below and the trailing buoys out the left side with the line, and it's slowly being pulled through like this. I got this whale. It'll give you a better idea. So it wasn't wrapped. Nothing was wrapped around anything. So it was more this direction. We have so many kids play with this tongue's falling out. But you have the crab, and we don't even know if it was crab pot, but we know it was something like that. So now actually the line was just kind of coming out behind. And so I'm going to have to do it like this because otherwise. So while we were making our way to the scene, this pot, because of the weight going like this, was slowly bringing those buoys closer to the whale. So it was going through the baleen like it was some dental floss. So the idea was, if we just cut not maybe 10, 15 feet behind the whale, we could release that entanglement. So those initial photographs are really helpful. So now we got Jean Demarjac, who's with the National Marine Sanctuary here in Monterey Bay, and he's throwing the grapple. You can see the arrow, and it's a heavy instrument that has a line on it, and you throw it, and there's a buoy attached to it. But what we wanted to do is grab that line and pull it towards the little boat. So that's what happened. Pulled that right up to the boat, and then pulled themselves closer to the whale. Then they were able to take another knife that we have like this, We have several. They actually used one of the ones that are bent. That I didn't bring all those because they're showing them over there at the booth out on the causeway for Whale Fest. But they were able to cut that, and so because they cut the buoys, now the rest of that line could just pull through and the buoys would not get caught. So that was a real simple way to disentangle that whale without putting a lot of stress on the animal, which was really cool. But if it wasn't for some of those initial photographs and really looking at it and assessing, that's why it's so important. We just don't go running and start hacking away. So that was really a cool one to do, and we were real thankful for that. And we did it in one day, and not even that long of a day, probably 2/3 of a day, so that's pretty quick, whereas the one that started here and was in Santa Barbara, that was 17 days from start to finish. It's not always a simple thing because you have weather coming in and the animal travels way offshore, that kind of thing. Now, in Canada, this year, we had a whale disentangler that was killed. Now, he was working with right whales, which I can't really show it with this. I can just show it to you with this line. See if that whale will stay there. Okay, say this is this? Oh, yeah, sorry. Yeah, I'm so sorry. So say this is a whale. Okay, now a humpback whale can swish its tail, things like that. But a northern northern Atlantic northern right whale, so the Pacific right whales can do this too, they can fold in half. So you could be working, say this is its head, you could be working at its head, and then it can bend in half and hit you with its fluke, which you have to be a level 5 to work on disentangling a right whale because they are so dangerous. And this gentleman, Joe Howlett, had just released one a few weeks before, and they had just finished rescuing this one and released it. And I don't know if they just lost situational awareness, which you can do. You're so excited it's done, but you have to keep that situational awareness the whole entire time because the whale, through its fluke, hit Joe and pinned him against the side of the boat and killed him, which was not good for anyone. No one has ever been killed in the United States, and the injuries have been very, very minor, which really bodes well for the protocol that we use to disentangle whales safely for the whale, but also for the rescuer. So it shut everything down for a few days, even in the United States, because no one wanted to look at all our safety protocols. And it did. But then we could respond, and we were limited, and we had to go step by step with NOAA. And the first one that in California that we were able to respond to was our sister disentanglement group up in Crescent City, and that was that grounded whale that was in that video, where it was coming up and those little yellow buoys popped up all over. It was a very complicated entanglement, but they were able to release it in one day. And it's nice when they're grounded like that because they're not swimming away. It's easier in some respects, but also more dangerous in others. But here's another one. We had the one in April, and here's one in October. So Blue Ocean Whale Watch, Kate called me directly. She actually volunteers for us too, part of our disentanglement team. And said they had an entangled whale. She had taken pictures, but the wind was coming in, and they actually had lost the whale, and they had to head in. But she said, you probably don't want to go out because the wind's coming in. It's going to be pretty dicey out there. So I talked to Peter Falkins, our level 4, and he said, why don't you just go out tomorrow? You'll have the photos. You'll know what whale to be looking for. And so that's what we did. So we went out the next day, and we were able to get both the lateral views on the left and the right, and you can see the entanglement is around the body. Now, remember that slide I showed you where it showed a little bit of line over the body, but you don't know what's going on underneath? Well, there were no trailing lines, no buoys, nothing. And this whale was so difficult to follow. There were so many humpbacks out there feeding that at the same time, and they'd go down. And this whale would not come up with the rest of them. It would stay down another 5, 6, 7 minutes or more, and then it'd be off somewhere else. And because of how this entanglement was, and there was no trailing buoys, we actually had our partner Moss Landing Marine Lab come out on their boat, and they said, "Oh, we found it over here." And I said, "Now, you sure it's the entangled whale?" Because we had another whale with a scar. And because of the glare, it was hard to tell until you got up close to it. And this whale was very mobile, because you can see it's fluking and stuff. It was moving, and it can move quite a ways in between each dive. And it was a well-known whale called Two Nails, and that's because it looks like two nails right there. So that's how it got its name. And it was really interesting. After the fact, we sent this to Happy Whale, and they have a lot of history of fluke IDs that not only from Cascadia Research, like all our IDs we send to Cascadia Research up in Washington State. They hold all the catalogs for humpbacks and blues and grays. And so we send that to them. But Happy Whale got all those IDs from John Kalmakitas from Cascadia, and then whale watchers, you as an individual could upload what you see out there, which is really great. So look at how many times this whale has been seen. Now, we know that it was not entangled when last seen on September 4th. But the first time it was seen this year was on July 30th, and it was seen again 20 more times until it was reported entangled on October 2nd. So that was great history to know. And we know on September 4th when it was sighted, it wasn't entangled. So it was a fairly recent entanglement. So that's information that's really important that we are gathering from all these events. Now you can see the line across the back, but he was a very difficult whale to follow. Plus, we couldn't really get near him at all, like to put our underwater GoPros or anything like that. So I called the gentleman on Discovery Whale Watch, Slater Moore, who does their drone operator. He's their drone operator, and he's licensed. So Kate Cummings on Blue Ocean Whale Watch, they had taken their passengers back in. Slater Moore drove up to Moss Landing. Kate Cummings took him out on their boat, and he was able to get drone footage. It's the first time we've ever had drone used in an entanglement. So this was so important. You would not have known any of this from even the assessment boat that we were on. So I'm going to play this, and I'll stop it at different spots because just so I can show you. Now, those are the sea lions that were cooperatively feeding with the humpback whale. But you can kind of see the buoys. I'm going to stop it in a couple spots. Yeah, right? There's the line coming underneath. So it's wrapped around the body here, and the line's coming underneath the whale. And there are buoys, but they're below the surface. And look, there's another line that's coming back even further. So whether that's attached to some kind of pot, we don't know. So it's just, sorry. Let's get back to where that was. But we would not have known that without the drone footage. It's pretty amazing, really. Really amazing. So that was an important piece to the puzzle, and we didn't get that footage till just before dusk, because this whale was really hard to follow, unfortunately. But we got a lot of good information. Now there, look how you can see it there. It really goes farther back. And I'll let the rest. There was I thought one more spot I needed to stop it at, but you can see that. But it's weird because when you look down in the water, you have more clarity than if you were looking this way in the water, horizontally. Because we had a humpback whale just the week before that came right next to the boat. We put the GoPro in the water, and that whale is like from me to you guys right there. You could not see the whale because the clarity of the water is not good here. It's not like in Hawaii. They can see a long ways, but because of all the food and the stuff in the water here. Sometimes, like, you'll see a video at the end, and even in that videos in the beginning where you saw all the dolphins in the clear blue water, that was off Big Sur. It's a lot different down there. So we had to go back. NOAA wouldn't let us do anything because it was getting close to dark. They wanted to see the video before we could attempt to put a telemetry buoy. As I said, they were watching every part of an entanglement, the steps to do one by one, because Joe Hollett was killed in Canada. So they had been very cautious. So we went out the next day. We had sent all the whale watchers, I emailed all of them with the pictures so they could be on the lookout. And so we went out searching the next day. And we searched and searched and searched. Well, we didn't find it, but then Bill was driving Princess Monterey's boat and called me and said, hey, it's down here, so it traveled a bit south. So we were with it not a real long time, and another whale came in. There were other whales in the area, but it wasn't doing the same kind of behavior it had been doing the day before. And another whale came in. This whale threw its tail up, did a twitch thing I've never seen. They both went down, and we never saw them again. It's so frustrating, you know, and we stayed out until dusk. We searched that whole entire area, did surveys looking for the whale, but we never encountered that whale again. So we mounted a big response for the following day on October 5th, and Kate didn't have a whale watch that day, so she took some people in our network out on her boat. I had myself as a level 3, but Ryan Berger came down from Northern California, and he's also a level 3. We had a huge team all set to go, so we could attach the telemetry buoy and then work on getting some GoPro stuff closer to the whale so we knew what to do to cut it free. And we searched all day, the entire bay. We saw over 150 humpback whales, but not our whale. And the weather was not nice. Not nice like, look at that. It wasn't real nice like the 2 days before. It was pretty crappy out there after, you know, by noon, and it was pretty rough. But unfortunately, we can't save them all. But we got a lot of good information from that. Plus, we can see how successful a drone is going to be for our toolkit. But then, you know, I'm getting ready to fly to Michigan on November 27th. It's Thanksgiving weekend. It's Saturday. And in that morning, I'm like, please, God, let there not be any entangled whales, because I have to pack. I have a lot to do. No, 10:45 or so, 11 o'clock, I get a call. I know Brian, the lieutenant on the Fish and Wildlife boat, Steelhead. He gives me a call and says he's got an entangled whale, a smaller animal, and it was with a larger one. And he said there's a line wrapped around forward of the dorsal, but he didn't see any trailing buoys. But they couldn't stand by until we arrived. So we mounted a rescue. Every day or every week we send out an email. Stephanie sends an email, and we have people that we know are available for certain days, because we have to have people at the ready at all times. So we like to have a crew that we know could go out if we had an entanglement. That's really important. But this day we only had one person on our list. Luckily, I made a few calls, and in 10 minutes I had a full crew. So we went out and we headed up to Moss. We got out right away. But there was no one standing by, so I did a call out on the radio. And there was a guy named Eric on this boat called Imbalance, who I didn't know, but also Fred Evenson was out on the water. He's part of WET, so he has a boat too. So he went out, and between the both of them, they found the whale, and we were only about 15 minutes out from them, so it worked out really well. And it was nice because Fred got a picture of us in the boat and the whale. We don't get that very often. So you can see, look, another one wrapped around its body. And I got a close one that's closer up. Now look at the knot. There's a knot, and there's actually 2 lines on the body and knotted in the middle. But this was really interesting. As we kept watching the whale, we're doing our assessment. We had the GoPro ready to put in the water. And look, the whale's line, we haven't done anything yet. It's starting to separate. Like, wow. This is exciting. Now look at the line. You don't see the 2 orange lines. And in fact, when Brian had called me, he had mentioned something about a green line, but we didn't see any green line when we first got there. Look at the green line right there. Now you only have 1 orange line. So this isn't really a tight wrap as it appeared to me. So the orange line fell off, and now the green line kept, we have several pictures of it all the way like here, here, here. So I just added this one. Now it's about ready to fall off the dorsal fin. Now you have no lines. Now, is it really free of all the lines? Who knows? That's why we keep working at the assessment. So now we have this whale, and this was a calf, and it's had a mom. The mom had left the calf with us and went to feed. There was a huge bait ball of fish not too far from us. So we're like, yay, okay, we can get in closer, get some GoPro overhead. We wanted to stick it in the water. But then the mom comes back. You'll see her in the background. But you notice, I'm going to stop this real quick. We got a lot just from that. There's no line coming out of the left side of the mouth. There is no line wrapped around the pec fin. That's a good sign. Oops, I keep doing that. But then the mom comes, and they start traveling. Yep, there she is in the background. I don't know if you can see my little hand over there. But this whale, it can fluke up, it's able to move. They started traveling fast after that. It's like the calf was resting. It was a pretty big calf, and while the mom fed, but then they started traveling. They just kept going west. And so, what do I have? Maybe it's gonna.
Here it is.
And the whale kept breaching. It traveled about 1.5 miles, 2 miles, and it started breaching. And oftentimes they'll breach to try to shed gear. So we were trying to get close to it, but they were moving so fast. But we were able to photograph the breaches. And so here again, you don't see any line around the pec fin, nor the gape of the mouth, nor the pec fin around any part of that part of the body at all. Then you don't see any wrapped on that pec fin, but we can't really see clearly, the whole side. But we know from the other, or I'm sorry, I'm looking at the wrong side. We already know there was nothing on the right side. But on the left side, you can see there's nothing wrapped on the pec, but we can't really tell about the gape of the mouth. So we still needed to take a closer look. But we were able to do that, which was great. Now, you know how you saw a line behind the whale before? You don't see any line coming out. We'll get to see the mouth here in a second. But look, there's no trailing line. And look, he's gonna fluke up. Oh, right. Oops. I do that each time. Get back down here. So right here, I'm showing it with on here, but right up in here, you can see the gape of the mouth. There's no line coming out there. There's no line along the body whatsoever wrapped around that area. So that whale is free of the line. And we know that they can throw the gear. It's the first time we'd ever seen a whale throw the gear from start to finish. I don't know how many days it had been entangled. We know from the happy whale, because I've got a slide about that it hadn't been entangled more than a month, if at all, that long. I bet it was that day. It was probably the calf playing with the line during the day, and then it fell off. But that was really important to know. But I was part of the SPLASH, this population abundance study, and you might have heard me talk about it in the past. It was a big study from 2004 to 2006 on the breeding and feeding grounds. And not only they were trying to estimate the actual population in the North Pacific, because the studies were so old, they knew the population had increased greatly. But we also did entanglement studies on that. And we know that at least 20 to 80% of the whales had entanglement scars, and we're not saving that many. But look, here's the calf. This is what was entangled, the calf, and then the mom. So we sent it to Happy Whale, and look how many times it had been sighted. The mom, 2013, 14, 15, 16, and in 17 she was first sighted with her calf on 9/24, 9/27. You see all the dates. The last time was 10/22, and then it was entangled on 11/25. So that was really important data that we were able to get because of Happy Whale and people submitting their photographs. So you have one we actually cut, one we lost, we can't save them all, and one a self-release. Self-releases are our favorite kind. I was very happy because then I could pack the next day. Otherwise, I was going to be responding and might have to change my flight to Michigan. That's where my family lives. So there's so much that goes into them. It's so nice when we can have something happen in a day, but generally it doesn't happen that quickly. But, if you want to be able to help us, there's so many different ways. If you're out there and you see a whale, call the hotline. In fact, out on the stand out when you leave, you can get one of our waterproof marine mammal guys. It's got the hotline. It's got all the beautiful illustrations that Peter Falkins, actually as an artist, our level 4, did all the illustrations on the inside. And so you can call the number. It tells you what to look for, how to stand by, what you can do to help. And always maintain a distance of 100 yards. And that's important because every time you go close to a whale, it takes away one of our approaches, because you're only going to be able to approach a whale so many times before it gets real irritated with you, and we want to save those approaches for the cuts and the real critical assessment when we're putting a GoPro right next to the whale. So that's real important. But you can support our team, host a fundraiser, donate funds, volunteer. We need licensed drone pilots, because I am looking now at drones. There's a lot of different types, and some you're not allowed to fly on a NOAA vessel. So because the Monterey Bay National Marine Sanctuary boat, the Fulmar that I had a picture of earlier, is a NOAA ship, we need one that is going to be allowed to fly on that, because it doesn't do us any good not to be able to fly with our partner. And here's some other things that we can use. We do have some money for a drone, but we still need about $3,000. They are not cheap. We're getting one that's waterproof. So we could actually drop it down on the water in front of the whale. I thought I had enough money. You know, they give you one price and there's all these add-ons. I'm like, great. So we can drop this one in the water, which will be great. Like, you know, how the drone flew over top. What if we want to get the GoPro or some footage right next to the whale without bringing the bigger vessel or even the smaller vessel near the whale? Drop the drone. Sometimes it's really hard to anticipate where you're going to see that whale. So, you know, you'll go, okay, I'm going to bring the boat like this, and we're going to turn, and the GoPro is going to be dropped over the side, and hopefully the whale does what we want it to. Sometimes it doesn't. But with a drone, you can follow it, and then you can see the whale, then just drop it, and then get it on both sides, and that would eliminate boat approaches, which is very important for disentangling at the end when you need to make those cuts. And here's some other things. One thing, we still need a self-inflating life raft. That's another big one. But anyway, just go to whaleentanglementteam.org, and if you want, and February 13th, if you want to go celebrate Valentine's Day early, Monterey Tides, I'm going to give a talk at 4 o'clock at Monterey Tides Hotel, and at 5, their restaurant on the 4th floor opens, and all the revenue from your dinner, the total dinner revenue, we get 25% of it. You eat, drink, and be merry, and we benefit. My favorite kind of fundraiser. But I wanted to thank you all for coming, and I'll take any questions, but I just wanted to thank you for coming. I really appreciate it. So I can't see, so if someone raises their hand, you'll have to let me know. It's very bright. Any questions? Right, I know. It's level 1. You would think level 1 would be the one that cuts. Level 1 is someone that can help from shore, observe, locate whales, because sometimes the gray whales go by the coast. Oh, he wanted to know the different levels. Sorry, I should have repeated the questions. What the different levels 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 mean. And level 2, I have a lot of level 2s that volunteer for us. They can be on a response. They know how to use the cameras. They know how to take data. They can turn on the telemetry buoy. They know how to tie lines, knots, and get things ready for the entanglement team that's maybe in the little boat. They know what the tools are and stuff. Level 3, you have to apply to NOAA for. So I had to apply to get designated as a level 3. In the beginning, I was a level 3. Then they changed it and said, no, you're not a level 3. You have to apply. I did, and I got it. I had been on so many entanglement responses. A level 4, you're directing the disentanglement response. You have a lot more responsibility, but you need to be able to make those cuts. You have a lot of experience. I don't have enough experience cutting lines, and I'm not really looking to be a level 4. There's a lot of people that are younger than I am that can be a level 4 that'll be appropriate for that. But then the level 5, the only difference between a level 4 and a level 5 is that you can work on right whales because they're a totally different beast. But we just had, like I said, this disentanglement workshop, and Ed Lyman's the one we brought in back in 2008 to do the training, because I know him from working in Hawaii. And he's got they're using a tail for training. We train all the time out on the water. We have one boat act like a whale. We to have gear trailing, and we throw the grapple hooks and stuff, but we really don't get a chance to cut. So they're going to give me the design for that, and I'm hoping, and I'm pretty sure they'll do it. MBARI, the Monterey Bay Aquarium Research Institute, will make it for me. And then Ed said they took like tire rubber from a tire and put it on there and actually tied it up in line and practiced cutting. So we're so excited about that in California. So I talked to Justin when I left yesterday. I said, you send me those instructions. I'm going to go to MBARI and see if they'll make it for us, and I think they might. So hopefully keep our fingers crossed. Any other questions? Oh, yeah, definitely. In fact, if you go to our booth, you can actually see the carabiners that we use to attach. But we have a long pole and this special instrument that screws in the pole, and then a carabiner, and it's held open by this other piece that protrudes. And then we have a line to that carabiner back to, well, actually, we usually attach a polyball first, maybe a couple of them, to slow the whale down. But that's just the same way we attach a telemetry buoy as well. And we have these long poles, and so you're holding the line, and that's on the end of the pole, and then you're in the small boat. And we can do it from the large vessel, too. It used to be they only wanted to do rescues from small boats, but that's not the case anymore. So you have this, and you got to think the whale's moving, you're moving. It's not an easy task. You get your carabiner over the edge of the line, and you get it, and you yank back, and you let go of the line, and someone else is manning the telemetry buoy or the polyball, because they're attached the same way. Throws it over the side of the boat, and that's how you attach it. But with the telemetry buoy, we turn it on the boat first. When we're leaving the harbor, we turn that on to make sure that it's getting a satellite signal, because we don't want to drop this $7,000 buoy in the water and find out we're not going to be able to track it. And so we attach that, and then we get a satellite signal, and we can follow that. It goes up, it's an Argos, it goes up to a satellite, and then gets pinged down to France, and then it's sent to us. And so we can follow it, but it also has a VHF in there, so we can use a VHF antenna when we're like line of sight, which is nice. But there's a gentleman in Salinas. I'm excited he's going to come to our training. We used to have to wait for it from the satellite, which sometimes can take an hour or so, so that's why you have the VHF in there. He's got a machine that we can actually, it'll read the Argos coming off of the buoy, so we could take him out on our boat. It's like $10,000 for this. No one's thinking about getting one, and then they could fly it, ship it back and forth up and down the state. But first we want to test it. But yeah, there's other ways too. Other ways, how Jean was throwing the grapple? You'll grapple the line and pull yourself up, and then you can just do an inline 8 and then attach it that way too. So sometimes we do it with a pull, sometimes by hand. Every entanglement is different, so you have to really think out the incident action plan beforehand, so you know what you're going to do. And there's not the same procedure on every whale, because they're all unique. Oh, one more question, I guess. Any more? Okay, yeah, go ahead and yell out. I can't see. The gentleman that he wanted to know if the guy that got pulled under died. He wasn't under the water at all. He was on the boat. We never get in the water with the whales at all. The gentleman in Canada. But there have been 2 people killed worldwide that actually got in the water, and one was off New Zealand. And he had disentangled a couple whales, but he always went in the water, and this other time he didn't come back. So it's very important that we just do it from small boats. It's too dangerous to be in the water. Too many things can happen. And I know I worked in Hawaii, and part of my job was to be in the water to document the behavior of competitive groups. And they're fighting with each other. The boys are fighting to get close to the female, and anything can happen, so that's why we do it from small boats. Well, thanks so much, and just stop by our booth. You can try the pole with the carabiner if you want to try attaching a telemetry buoy. It gives you kind of an idea of how heavy it is and stuff. Thanks again.